Thank you for joining us for another edition of Boom and Bust. I'm your host, Tony Clement. I'm here at the News Forum where all voices matter. Canada and Korea have long-standing trade and security links, and two-way trade reached $16.7 billion in 2021. This is spurred by a highly successful bilateral trade agreement. We're honored to have with us South Korea's ambassador to Canada, His Excellency Woongsoon Lim. Welcome to Boom and Bust, sir.
Hi, thank you for having me on your program, and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you too. So I guess my first question is a general one. How would you characterize South Korea-Canada trade? What are its main characteristics?
Let me start by saying that this year, 2023, is very special for Korea and Canada. This year marks the 60th anniversary of Korea-Canada economic relations. And in Korea, 60 means one full cycle of a chapter of life. So we believe there is time for us to take stock of the last 60 years to prepare another chapter of our long journey together. And if you look back on the last 60 years, Korea and Canada have made great strides in our bilateral relationship. And as you said, trade volume has increased 3,000-fold from $4 million to $13 billion, as you said, in year 2021. And the number of annual visitors between our two countries, it increased from a few hundred to 450,000. And the Korean community in Canada has grown from few hundred to 240,000. So now Canada has the fourth largest Korean diaspora in the world, just next to United States, China, and Japan. And if you look back on these 60 years, then economic partnership is really stellar. And we have made very great two milestones in our economic history. The first one is Korea's import of Canada's CANDU nuclear reactors. And in the 1970s, we started to import CANDU reactors. In year 1983, we started the first commercial operation. And over the years, Korea has grown to be home to the largest CANDU reactors outside of Canada. And the second milestone was the conclusion of the free trade agreement, and it went into effect in year 2015. And this agreement is Canada's first and only free trade agreement in Asia. And if you see the data, then the trade volume between Korea and Canada has grown by like 23%. If you see the trade volume in year 2014, it's just a year before the free trade agreement went into effect. Our trade volume stood around $10 billion, but it has grown into $13 billion in year 2021. And we don't have data about 2022 yet.
Yes. So would you attribute that increase in trade to the effects of the agreement? And how are Korean businesses taking advantage of that?
There is an index, one we call free trade agreement utilization rate. And we found that around 95% of the Korean exporters to Canada, they utilize the free trade agreement's benefit. So it definitely contributes to the growth of our trade volume. But mainly, that benefit has focused, in case of Korea, on the automobile. You can see a great increase in the export of our automobiles and also electric vehicles to Canada. And in case of Canada, there was no tariff. When we signed the free trade agreement, there was no tariff like on some minerals. So in that case, there was no impact from the benefit of the FTA on certain products. But in case of vegetable oil and gold and some minerals, then you could see dramatic increase in the Canada's export to Korean market. But still, there is much room for Korea and Canada to increase the trade because there is an index called PII. It stands for Trade Intensity Index. And if that index is over 1, with a certain country,
Right.
it means that you have a very intense trade with that country. And if it's below
Sure.
1, then you don't have enough trade with that country.
Sure.
And if you see that index, Korea and Canada have just 0.4.
Welcome back to Boom and Bust. I'm your host, Tony Clement. I'm here with His Excellency Woongsoon Lim. He is the ambassador of South Korea to Canada. Ambassador Lim, sorry I had to cut you off there. You were talking about the Trade Intensity Index. Please continue to explain how important that is.
Yes, as I said, there is a study indicating that the index between Korea and Canada is just around 0.4%. It means that there is a room for Korea and Canada to double up our trade volume. And we strongly believe that there is still more we could do together. That's why President Yoon Suk-yeol of Korea, he chose Canada as a destination for his first bilateral visit abroad last year. And when he met with Prime Minister Trudeau, they declared comprehensive strategic partnership. And one of the main parts of the partnership is to increase the economic security cooperation. And as a result of that summit, we decided to launch 2+2 high-level dialogue on economic security and also signing of the MOU on the critical minerals. And with this new, institutionalized framework, I believe that there is much room we can boost our trade.
I'm glad you mentioned critical minerals because I do want to ask you about supply chain. You mentioned electric vehicles also in the first segment. So is there a possibility of much increased trade between South Korea and Canada with respect to the EV and EV battery supply chain?
Yes, people I addressed that. There is a very interesting study. The Business Council of Canada and its Korean counterpart called the Federation of Korean Industries, they commissioned a group of experts to study our bilateral relationship and come up with their proposal on how to boost our economic relations. And their answer is what they call MAPLE. And they are not referring to Canadian syrup. Your syrup is so good. But MAPLE is a set of initials that represent the most promising sector of our future economic cooperation. And M means minerals, and A means artificial intelligence, and P means political coordination, and L means low carbon technology, and the last one, E means electric vehicle batteries. And we believe that in Korea, the manufacturing, as you know, is a major engine for Korea's economic growth. And we are very strong in semiconductors and electric vehicle batteries and mobile phones and home appliances and shipbuilding. And most of these products are heavily relying on the global supply chain. So securing a very reliable global chain is very critical to the Korean economy. But if you see the data, like the case of second battery, the Korean companies' reliance on China isn't even higher than China itself. So we need to find new partners, and we believe that Canada can be a very good partner in Korea's strenuous efforts to find very stable supply source for the critical minerals. And
yeah, and are you finding there's a lot of talk, obviously, in the last couple of years about supply chain and shifting of supply chains away from the People's Republic of China. And obviously, China still has some major issues as they are moving out of zero COVID to whatever they're doing now. So are you finding that Korea is taking advantage of shifting supply chain patterns?
Actually, Korea started to follow the time-honored wisdom not to put all the eggs in one basket, even before the outbreak of the COVID-19. So Korean governments and Korean business, we are looking for new partner even before the Russian war in Ukraine and even before the outbreak of the COVID-19. but those events had made our business more serious and more urgent. And I don't want to talk about our heavy reliance on a certain country, but as I said, we want to just follow that wisdom of not to put all the eggs in one basket. And we believe that Canada can be a very good and reliable partner for that business.
Your Excellency, we're going to take another brief break for a commercial so that we can be viable here at Boom and Bust. We still have a couple of segments to go with our interview, so please stand by. We'll be right back after these messages. Welcome back. I'm your host, Tony Clement, here at the News Forum. Welcome back to Boom and Bust. And we're here with our guest, His Excellency Woongsoon Lim. He is Ambassador of South Korea to Canada. Ambassador, it goes without saying that South Korea exists in a very dangerous neighborhood, let's put it that way. How is South Korea looking at expanding its security needs?
East Asia has long been called a flashpoint and one of the most combustible regions in the world. And that is the area where the interest of the major powers intersects and sometimes collide head-on. And in modern history, as you know, there was a Russo-Japanese War, Chinese Sino-Japanese War, Korean War, and other innumerable armed conflicts. And Korea has been always the first victim of these wars. And even though we did not provoke others, were the first. And also, as if these challenges are not serious enough, these geopolitical dynamics are not serious, are not challenging enough, we have another problem, as you said, North Korea. And last year, North Korea has fired more than 60 ballistic missiles, including 8 intercontinental ballistic missiles. And they broke their record number they had in year 2019. In year 2019, North Korea fired 25 ballistic missiles. But it's not just about the number of missile test fired. We believe that their provocation has entered the new dimension because in the past, their test firing was rather isolated event. It's just test firing. But since last year, they start to do it as part of the war exercise. When they test fired missiles, they mobilize their traditional conventional forces and also the scrambling of military jets. So we believe they now entered into, another level of provocations. That means we need much stronger response to those provocations. So our new government in Seoul, first, they introduced what we call 3Ds. 3D stands for deterrence, dissuasion, and dialogue. Deterrence means we need to develop our deterrence system, like early detection of their missile test firing and the preemptive strike if necessary. And also MD means we need to develop our MD system to intercept any incoming missile from North Korea. And the lastly, we need to increase our counter-strike capability. And it should be done in close cooperation with our allies and our partners, including Canada. But I want to say that, we shouldn't be complacent about the threat from North Korea, but we don't need to panic since Korea is now well positioned to handle those challenges. Korea is now the 10th largest world economy, and its size is around 500 times that of North Korea. And also we have a 6th largest military power. So, I want to emphasize that we are in a very good position to handle those challenges than we were in the past. And our strong alliance with the United States, it can be a very good deterrent against any serious provocation from the North.
And of course, there are U.S. troops south of the DMZ, keeping the peace along with the Korean soldiers as well. Is Canada playing a role in enhanced security for Korea?
Canada has played a very great role in the defense of Korea. First of all, you have sent third largest troops during the Korean War, and 516 Canadian soldiers, they made ultimate sacrifice, and we never forget about that. And since that, Canadian troops has engaged in the UN command in the DMZ, and you are now sending around a dozen Canadian soldiers to Korea, and also you are now participating in the monitoring and surveillance activities of North Korea's illegal transshipping of the banned items. So you are now sending one ship to the area around Korean Peninsula, and your contribution is very much helpful in countering North Korea's illegal transshipping of the banned products.
We're just going to take another brief break, sir. We've got one last segment with you. Thanks for hanging on for this. We'll be back after these messages. And welcome back to Boom and Bust. I'm your host, Tony Clement, here with His Excellency Woongsoon Lim. He is Ambassador of South Korea to Canada. Your Excellency, just want to shift gears. We've talked about the economy, we've talked about security, but Korea is becoming quite a cultural force in the world as well, and certainly to be recognized. I think of K-pop like BTS, successive TV shows like Squid Game, etc. Is this something that you are starting to promote as well in your role as ambassador?
Sure. Well, it represents Korea's enhanced soft power, and there is a very interesting news during the last weekend. U.S. News and World Report, they released the rankings of the powerful nations in the world, and I was surprised to know that Korea was ranked as the sixth powerful nation in the world. And as I said, we have the 10th largest economy and 6th largest military power. And when they elevate Korea's status to the 6th, I believe that Korea's soft power were formed by the booming of the K culture made a great contribution to the elevation of the Korea's status in the global stage.
So, are there increased cultural exchanges and things like that you work on to further introduce Korean cultural activity to Canadians?
Sure. Well, as I said, this year marks the 60th anniversary of the Korea-Canada diplomatic relations, and we are now organizing various types of the cultural events throughout this year. And I'm anticipating the participation of the many Canadians because I believe people-to-people exchange and the cultural exchange, they are really a fundamental basis for the sustainable relationship between Korea and Canada.
We've just got a couple of minutes left. I'd love just to get your sense, sir, of Korea's greatest challenges, perhaps, in the next few years, and also its greatest opportunities.
Greatest challenge, well,
it could be military, it could be economic, whatever you think is the most challenging for Korea these days.
Korea is not immune to the global economic challenges like inflation and high interest rates and the growing disruption and uncertainty in the economic outlook. We are not exceptional. We are not immune to those challenges like other countries, but rather the most significant and fundamental challenges facing us is the Korea is becoming aging society and the very low fertility rate, and we are now losing much of the workforce in the long term. And we believe that in that sense, we have much to learn from Canada's immigration policy. And when our President Yoon Suk-yeol, when he had a meeting with the Prime Minister Trudeau, he said, I believe we have much to learn from Canada's experience of openness, of immigration, and your respect for diverse cultures. So in that sense, well, Canada can be a very good reference for Korea to handle the long-term crisis of the aging society.
That's a very interesting observation, and I would say historically, probably high immigration has not been the experience in Korea. Do you think that there's a change in attitude in Korea on those things?
There is still mixed perception about immigration, but there is obviously very clear sign of Koreans change in their perception about the immigrants.
Very interesting. And we've got about half a minute left. So, are you let's put it this way: are you optimistic about South Korea's future?
Yes, I'm very much optimistic about it, since Korea tends to be grow stronger after we go through crisis. Well, as you know, Korea went through 36 years of colonization, and we had the Korean War, and also we were the poorest country in the world until the 1960s. And also we had the economic financial crisis in the early 1990s.
Right.
And there is a series of crises and after crisis, but only after crisis, Korea grew stronger.
Exactly.
So
yeah.
We have never complacent about the challenges we are facing, and we are now ready to tackle them once again.
Perfect. Sir, we've run out of time, but I really appreciate your presence on our program today. Thanks for being here.